your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at ubnradio.com. Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Hi, and welcome to Both Sides Now. I'm Dr. Shirley.
And I'm medium Kellee White.
And in this show, we're going to talk about life and about everything that happens to us in life from both perspectives, the psychological perspective
And the spiritual perspective.
You know, ever since I was little, even though I was brought up by an engineer father, and I'm a huge left brain, because feelings were really they didn't exist when I was a kid. I used to always wonder, it never made sense to me that once you die, that there's nothing left. Because I thought, well, where does that part that makes us special go? You know, the part that, I don't know, makes us feel or makes us who we are. I just never believed that that just kind of just disappeared into thin air. I mean, I used to ponder a lot when I was a kid. There was a tree that I used to climb. I spent a lot of time alone. There was a tree that...
Poor thing.
Right? There was a tree that I used to climb and ponder all these kind of issues that didn't make any sense to me. And maybe that's where if something doesn't make sense, I know it immediately. So, for example, being brought up Catholic also, engineer and Catholic, it was the whole sex thing, you know? Sex is wrong until you get married, and then it's okay. So I literally would go in the back, climb my tree, and go, how can something that is so wrong become right just because you sign a piece of paper? It didn't make any sense to me.
It still doesn't now.
So I would sit there and think about it. But I digress. The point is, I felt also I would sit and think about the spiritual side. It didn't make any sense that was it. And so I always had this kind of idea that there was something more out there. But then I got trained at UCLA, and it's a very research-oriented school. And so I kind of also just kind of lay dormant, let's just say. And then I met this wonderful woman next to me through her mother, who's one of my, I can't say enough. She was my mentor and just a lovely, lovely person. A shout out to your mom.
Hi, Mom.
Dr. Lou Katzman-Steinberg. And you are her daughter.
Yes, I am.
And you were my intern for a while, just as I was your mom's intern. You pay it forward.
Yep.
And now you're licensed, but you're also a medium.
Yes.
And let me tell you, it's been fascinating. I mean, of course, the first time someone tells me that they have, I consider it a gift. You know, the left brain becomes a little skeptical, even though they're laid that dormant piece of believing in this. And so it took me a little bit to kind of, I don't know, just be with you and get to know you and ask you questions and stuff. And now, let me tell you, sometimes we work together with different clients, and it's amazing. The healing that happens so much quicker, you know, when you come involved is just unbelievable.
Thank you.
But why don't you tell, for the people who don't know, your story?
All right.
How did that happen? I mean, were you always a medium, or?
I was always different. From the beginning, my mother would say, now, Kellee, there's a box. Stay in the box. So I would have to pretend to see that there is a box, but I knew that there really wasn't a box. So everybody who knows me, who's known me for years, would know that I was always very different. I was always wildly intuitive. So I always thought, frankly, until fairly recently, that everybody knew what everybody was thinking. So I would walk in a room as a young child and know that this one was mad at this one one was upset, this one didn't get sleep enough, this one didn't whatever enough. I always knew the answer of what was going on. But I thought everybody could do it. So it never really dawned on me that I was all that different. And then I started realizing as I got older that I would know certain things. Like there's no way I could know that this person had died, or I remember once I was in school and I had no idea. I was terrible in math, and I had no idea what the answer was. And the teacher called on me, and he said, "What's the answer, Kellee? Kellee Jo? What's the answer?" And I was like, 120. And he goes, "Yes, that's correct." Now, and I was like, "Whew!" And I have no idea where it came from. Mm-hmm. And then he said, "So how did you do that?" And then I was really in trouble. And then he thought that I had made it up. I mean, that I had cheated or
You
something.
cheated, yeah.
It was unbelievable. So it's it's one of these odd gifts. It keeps on giving. So what happened to me is on my path, I started off as an executive chef and I was in the food business. And then I became an executive in the food business.
So that's very corporate.
It was
There's
corporate.
nothing spiritual about that.
Nothing. Oh, devoid of spirituality. I mean, forget anything that you want to do spiritually in the corporate world. Not going to happen. But what happened is I was a senior executive for a very large company, one of the largest companies in the world, actually. And I'd traveled a lot for business, so I was always traveling internationally. And one day I came back home and I was really exhausted. I'd been in Hong Kong and Europe and I was exhausted. And I came home and I promised my daughter I would take her to see Sting at the Greek Theater. And I was getting into my car, and as I was getting into my car, I smashed my head, my temporal lobe, so about right here.
Let me actually put your hair down.
Thank
a little.
you.
There we go.
Thank you. And I smashed my head, and unbeknownst to me, at that exact moment that I hit my head, my life was over. I had no idea.
You mean the old life as you knew it?
The old life as I knew it was
Wow.
gone, and a new adventure was about to begin, and I had no idea. All I knew is I blacked out for a moment, just a moment. So this was not a near-death experience. I didn't die. My head started to bleed internally. I could feel a rush of something, but I was a single mother, and I was a business person, and I didn't have 2 seconds to fool with a head injury.
Right.
I didn't even
You
think
just
about
do
it.
it, yeah.
Now, later on, I found out that it's the same injury that Natasha Richardson had, that she died.
Wow.
So it was a very serious injury that I had. So I remember that night we went to the concert, and I was angry. And I was angry because the blood was rushing through my body, through my brain, bleeding internally. And I was constantly angry. Now, I'd never been angry in my life. So that was one of the big changes that occurred for me.
Yeah.
So I started getting really angry, and it was really hard to control. In fact, I couldn't control it. But then from that part, I did not. So months had happened. Months went on after I initially hit my head, and I still worked, and I still did my normal life to the best of my ability with this anger issue that just kept coming in and coming in and coming in. And then one day I found myself, I had a boyfriend at the time, and we were in Tahiti. And when we were in Tahiti, we were asleep, and we were on an island with no electricity. So when it was black, lights out.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the night, I looked up, and floating 3 feet above me was a native, no, not a native, it was an Indian man from India. And I saw him clearer than you could ever possibly imagine.
Like see-through, like
No, not
Casper
see-through.
the Ghost,
no,
or
no,
like
no,
this?
no, like just like this,
But
like
floating.
only floating 3 feet
Oh
above.
my God, I would have freaked out.
Oh, well, I did. Are you kidding me? I literally, my hair went whoa, 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 like that, and I was like freaked. You can't even imagine. I'm screaming, and my boyfriend gets out of bed, and he's, what? There's nobody here, and I'm screaming. There's an Indian man, and he's like, no, there's nobody there, and I'm like, ah. I mean, I was, and if I shut my eyes, and if I opened my eyes, he was still there. It was as creepy, scary as you could ever imagine.
Oh my God. Now, what was the Indian man doing while you were screaming? And
Just smiling this big ass smile like this. Just love, 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 love,
oh
love.
my God.
And later on, I know now it was, so spirit guides, they just love, love, love. So that's what the feeling was, just total love, love, love coming out. But what happened is, then he disappeared and I fainted. And when I came to, there was a Jamaican woman, the same thing. She was beautiful, with this beautiful gold and yellow and orange flowing from her with the biggest love smile you could ever imagine. And I'm screaming, oh my God. My boyfriend was screaming. He's standing there. He's going, what? Is it the Indian man? No, it's a Jamaican woman. A Jamaican woman. There's nobody here. But then here's the weirdest thing. And he was there for 90 seconds. She was there for 60 seconds. And I know that because that's what I was told by my ex-boyfriend. And he said after this, he said, darling, those are your spirit guides. Now, this is a guy that wouldn't have known. He was zero spirituality. There's no way he could have possibly known that. But they put that information, they gave him that information to tell me.
Kind of said it.
Absolutely, he said it. And it was quite a ride from there. So from that moment, that was the first thing that I'd ever seen. The first thing that I'd ever seen. So from that moment, I didn't have any more. Everything was fine. My life was going the way I thought it was supposed to be going.
Yeah.
Still worked, still had my daughter. I was a single parent, still traveled. I was still really agitated, though. But one day, my sister came over, and she said, before my sister came over, I'm sorry. What happened is one day, I was out I lived at the beach, and so I was outside looking at the ocean and just contemplating life. And I looked next door, and I lived in a condo, and there was a condominium next door to me, and there was a woman, an older woman, beautifully dressed, and she was smoking a cigarette. And she waved, and I waved, and she was wearing a St. John's knit. I remember because it was like, really, she was just elegant, And anyway, the next night, she's out there smoking a cigarette, different dress, and I'm like waving. I'm like, wow, this gal really is she's like got to be in her 80s. She's smoking, and she's like all dressed up.
Wow.
Yeah, another wave, never no speaking, but just
right.
And again, saw her as clearly as I'm seeing you. And next night, same thing. This went on for a week. So then that's Saturday. My sister comes over, and she says, Kel, there's a condo in your building. I'd like to check it out. It's for sale. And I go, there is? Oh, okay. So we go, and I realize that it's the condo where this woman lives. And I'm like, wow, I had no idea that this woman even lived there, let alone that she had, was selling her place. So we walk in, and there's no furniture in there. And it's just this young guy, or younger, in his 40s, guy standing there. And I said, wait a minute, isn't this... I know the woman that lives here. She's got these beautiful clothes, and she wears all these St. John knits. Is that your mother? And he goes, yes, that's my mother. And I said, well, I see her every night. She's out there smoking. Where is she? I'd love to say hello to her since we... And he looked at me, and he said, my mother died 9 months ago.
Oh, my God.
And at that
Oh my God.
moment, I went, holy mother of God, what is going on with me?
Wow.
And then that night when I walked outside, I had a different conversation with myself and with God. And I said, God, what the effing world do you want me to do?
We
Do
can
you want
say
me
it
to
here.
frickin' psychic?
Oh, my God.
Because I was seeing dead people. And the next day, kaboom, everywhere I went.
Really?
It was like out of a movie. Everywhere I went was this. You walk in a room, I'd see your spirit guides. I'd see your brother who passed away. They'd come, they'd talk to me, they'd tell me all kinds of things.
If you saw them like you see me, how could you tell the difference from the person who's still alive and the person who's dead?
I'll tell you how. They were 3 feet above.
Really?
Yeah, 3 feet, about like this, floating above. Sometimes they're a little higher, but I'm going to guess around 3 feet, just like right over here, right at this angle.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes they're a little over there. Sometimes they're a little higher. But for me, sometimes they're like right floating over. Yeah. And
well, I see that you're looking up.
Sometimes
when we
I'll
work
look
together.
up.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just easier for me to shut my eyes and then just receive. Sometimes I see things through my third eye, which this is your third eye. Sometimes I actually see with my physical eyes. It all depends. Sometimes they come to me in a dream. But what I had to do is I had to really learn quickly how to discern what was happening to me.
Yeah, I bet.
Fortunately, my mother, as we were just talking about, was the person that helped me survive and go through this and figure out what was happening to me. There are 3 ways that people can become a medium. The first way is through, if it's somebody in your family has the gene, somebody is already a medium, your grandmother, your father, your mother, somebody. That's pretty typical. Second way is through an illness. And the third way is through a head injury.
Wow, that's interesting.
I
didn't
had
know
all
that.
3.
You had all three.
Yeah. Turned out, unbeknownst to me, my grandfather, my mother's father, was a physical medium. And I just found this out a couple of weeks ago. He was a table tipper. And so he would go, da-da-da-da-da, table, rise. And the table would go, woo, up and down and move. Oh, yeah, unreal.
Really?
Who knew? No, I was never talked
Your
about.
mother never said that?
No. She, at one point, she said to me, I thought everybody did that. I thought every family did that. Like, what? How could that be?
That's hilarious.
I mean, it's very funny. But I recently found out that my grandfather actually, from the time he was 10, he started receiving messages. And to the point where he would receive them and he would get so exhausted he would pass out.
Really?
It can be draining.
So from a genetic standpoint, is it, I've heard in the past that it has something to do with your pineal gland.
Yes,
so
it is.
Is that the genetic piece that's already kind of either bigger, more open? I mean, I don't know what that
Yes.
gland would look like in people who are
Yes.
able to do that.
I believe that is absolutely the gland. And what happens is, from what I understand, it's filled with what I'm going to call the God juice or the God serum. There's actually a technical term that I can't remember right now, but it's something.
So there's a liquid inside.
There's a liquid inside. And apparently what had happened to me is when I had this massive head injury, that broke right open.
Oh.
And so all of that just flooded me. But I also had encephalitis when I was 3.
I see.
So I had that, and that's inflammation of the brain. So I was already in a state, obviously in development for this. And then the head injury went kaboom, and that was it. Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was unreal.
So you hit your head and you started to see dead people.
Yes. And I started seeing dead people.
And there you go, folks.
And that was it.
Oh my God. That's amazing. I mean, that is an amazing story. And I'm sure, I mean, we've talked before, but that took a while to kind of, kind of become comfortable with it and kind of settle into it and accept it. And
that was really the hard part. It was because now I have 2 fabulous mentors, James Van Praagh and Mavis Patilla.
Yeah.
They're fabulous. But at the time, I didn't have anybody. So at one point, I actually didn't know what to do because I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know what to do. It was scary, and I had to try to learn how to control it. So the first thing that happened to me is I had a dream that these 2 Native Americans came to me. A lot of people would come to me in my dreams. They still do. And they came to me in my dream, and they said, "We need you to come to Taos, and we're going to help you in Taos." So I actually called my cousin and said, "Would you go to Taos, New Mexico with me?" And she said, "I'd love to." And I said, "There are 2 Indian men."
She just thought it was a trip.
She did. And she said, I said, "Well, Sandy, I have some business there." So bless her heart, she was so easy about it because this was a real something that I had to do. There was no maybe about it.
Right.
It was a very serious event. So we drove to Taos, and it was interesting. When we first got to Taos, now Sandy, my cousin Sandy, had witnessed some of my situations that would happen when I had no ability. I was a blurter. I was a psychic blurter. I had no ability to discern that somebody wanted to hear something or they didn't want to hear something.
Kind of a Long Island medium?
Oh, yeah. I was...
Who I love, by the way.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I was just like that. I would just go up and start saying, "Oh, your son is giving you a massage. I know he died in a skiing accident, but he's right here and he's doing this."
Oh, my God.
I have to tell you, some people were, like, shocked and,
I bet.
thought I was insane.
Yeah,
and that was a drag. But one time... Well, so what happened is we went to Taos, New Mexico, and... we check into the hotel. We were in a bed and breakfast, and the only thing I wanted to do was find these 2 Indian men. That's all I wanted to do.
That came to you in a dream. And you were just focused, and you were going to go find them.
Oh, that was it. But we were at this bed and breakfast, and we're putting our stuff away, and we went out, to the main lobby of the bed and breakfast, and I see this woman who runs the bed and breakfast, and we introduced ourselves, and I looked up, and I said, "Oh, your daughter is here. You lost her when she was 2, but she's now 16, and she's here, and she just loves the whole family, and she's, she doesn't want you to worry." All these other things that I was saying. Oh, and she's with her white dog, Fluffy. Yeah. So let me tell you what happened. The woman immediately breaks down, starts to cry. Apparently there had been a horrible accident. She was from Australia and been an accident with the daughter. The daughter died as a result of an accident, and along with their dog Fluffy.
Really?
Yeah. But happened is the husband and owner of the bed and breakfast didn't like this, and he was very upset and actually threw us out of the bed and breakfast.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. How dare you talk to my wife like that? I mean, it was on and on and on and on. It was so horrific. It was an awful experience.
Wow.
However, as we were packing our bag back up again, and I was like, "Oh, Sandy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." It's just the way it is. And
That's so
they
funny.
actually came and they knocked on our door and they said, "Look, we're sorry we got so mad. Please stay." That is exactly what happened, and maybe you can help bring some peace to my wife. And that's exactly what I did.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
one
So it
would
was really-
think. I mean,
it was
how
very
would you
empowering.
know? Yeah. Well, and that's what I find. It can be so empowering because the stuff that you say to them, nobody else would know. Even when we work together, and I've seen someone in my practice, we don't talk about it. I just bring you in. It would defeat the purpose, and there'd be no reason to do that. But the things that you say, there'd just be no way of knowing. And many times it's happened where you'll say stuff that I didn't even know, that they hadn't told me just for whatever reason. It didn't occur to them. It wasn't part of, what was going on in the session at the time. But the healing is just so, it can be so healing. And then it kind of almost heals a piece, and then it allows me the opportunity to just continue with the psychological healing here, on Earth. So it's just so wonderful.
Yeah. It opens up the room, because what happens is with great loss, people shrink in and they get scared, and then they get fear-based, and they can't move, and they don't know what's happening. And then they get depressed and,
There's
sad.
nothing like fear to stop you from doing anything. Fear stops you in your tracks like nothing else. Yeah.
It literally removes your vital life force is what happens with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow.
So continuing with what happened on this trip.
That's right. Okay, so what happened? Did you find these Indian guys?
I did. Oh, you should see me. I was running through. We went to the Taos Pueblo, and we were running through the Pueblo and in and out of places. And Sandy couldn't even keep up with me, And I'm like, looking around the room. No, that's not them. Next place. No, that's not them. Next.
Because you had seen them in your dream.
Oh, I knew exactly what they looked like.
Okay.
And just like I knew my guys, just like I've known whoever I see has come that clearly to me.
So fascinating.
I run in, and I'm getting exhausted at this point. And Sandy, I could tell, bless her heart, she was so good. She said, look, just come into the shop with me. I just want to look at a shop. She was tired of me running around. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't want to look at a shop. I just want to find these men. And I'm like that. And we walk into the shop, and I look up, and kaboom, first one. And I go, and he comes over to me, and handsome movie star, handsome Native American guy, real tall, dark and handsome, and he comes over and he puts his arms around me, and he said, I was waiting for you. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And he said, I want you to go see this other man. He gave me the man's name, and he said, here's his card. I want you to go see him. He's going to help you. Here's his directions. The card was his directions. And he said, here you go. He's going to help you.
Okay. So just because my left brain is going crazy right now.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that you walk in, and this random guy who you've never met, who's never met you, looks at you and hugs you and says, I was waiting for you.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes. I really feel that this was all set up for me to do what I'm doing.
Well, it had to be, But that's amazing.
Yes.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So before we go further, I have been remiss in introducing John, our engineer, who's this wonderful engineer.
He's
great.
Say hi.
Hi, Shirley. Hi, Kellee.
He makes everything happen, so if you hear his voice throughout the podcast, you'll know who it is.
I've been chomping at the bit. I wanted to say something. I'm like, I'm going to wait because I don't know if they want me to.
No, and I'm so sorry. I was just so enthralled with that so please forgive me.
No.
But can you believe that?
I'm just flabbergasted, actually. I'm just like, whoa. Right. I mean, that's really how you know it was totally blueprint for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, blueprint.
And what I found too is that I have to pay attention to what I hear or what I feel or what I think. I actually have to. Mm-hmm. I can't not. I'll miss something. If I think it or feel it, I've got to go with it.
Yeah.
Everybody should be that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Intuition means into the soul.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's true. I mean, I've always had a pretty strong intuition, and every single time, as they say, every single time that I followed it, it takes me exactly where I need to be. Yeah.
Well, that led you to meet my mom.
Oh, completely.
Which, if we continued down, which would have led us here.
Completely. Yeah, because I met your mom. I mean, you know the story, but I don't know if I ever told you, John. It was the most random thing.
Oh, yeah?
I grew up in the Valley, Pasadena area, so nothing to do with the West Side, and never been in the West Side. My sister worked in the West Side in Beverly Hills, so it was the first time and I went to UCLA. Okay. So sometimes, either on my way to UCLA or on my way back, I'd go and I see her. She was working in a law firm, but never been in Beverly Hills. And one day, I was living in a town in Sherman Oaks, and I wake up, I think it was a Friday, and Sydney was 2, and I think she had a play date or something, and I went, go to Beverly Hills. And it was almost like that. I think the famous commercial in the 80s that I grew up in is the, Toucan Sam, follow your nose. And I literally just followed my nose. Something said, go to Beverly Hills. So I went over the hill. People who live in LA will know what that means. I took, I think, Coldwater Canyon or something. And I ended up in Beverly Hills, and I ended up on a street called Bedford, and I'd never been on that street because my sister's law firm was on Camden. It wasn't on Bedford. I end up on Bedford, and I look up, and that's a great street. And then I find parking, and I look at
Which
a
is
building.
unusual in itself.
Right. And I look at a building, had never been to that building ever, and I go, that's a cool building. And I walk into the elevator, and I press 3. I don't know why I pressed 3 because I'd never been in that building or anything. And then I get out, and I get out of the elevator, and I go left. I don't know why I didn't go right. I went left. And I ended up in this door that said psychological services, and I went, oh, great, because at that time I was looking to find an internship. I needed, as a therapist, psychologist, we need 3,000 hours of working under somebody else's license in order to, be ready to take your own licensing exam. So I needed, I think, about 1,500. So I open the door, and I see the secretary there, who was actually the secretary for other people, not your mom. And just as I was saying, I'm looking for an internship, blah, blah, and she was kind of looking at me like, I don't know what that is. Your mom shows up. She happened to be in between patients, which never happens.
Never.
So she shows up, and I talk to her, and I say, and I introduce myself, like random, and I go, I'm looking for, student at UCLA, and I'm looking for a psych assistantship. I need 1,500 hours. And she looks at me, and she goes, oh, honey, I'm not taking on any more psych assistants. And something told me, literally, I almost felt being hit in the back of the head, and the words just kind of came out of my mouth, and I said, but I'm trained in hypnosis. I mean, random, out of the blue.
So
Why
random.
would I even say that?
So random.
And so her mom goes, oh, well, honey, I need a good hypnotist, but let's have lunch. I don't know you.
Yeah.
So she actually made the time to have lunch, and
That's
this woman worked
impossible.
8 to 6
Wow.
every day. And we knew, people in common from professors at UCLA and so on, and she took me on. And I was the last person she took on,
That's
and that's
amazing.
how I met you and, of course,
Wow.
your sister and brother.
It's amazing.
Yes,
It really is amazing. I
in
mean, think about it.
1997. Yeah.
Talk about following your intuition, right?
I know.
Completely.
I know. So that was crazy. So yeah, I mean, this was kind of, I almost feel like we're, there's this big puppeteer.
Yeah,
and
sure.
we're just kind of following along.
absolutely, absolutely.
And what's funny is what you've taught me is there's definitely that idea of free will, because the thought came into my mind, drive to Beverly Hills today. But I could have ignored it. I could have said no. Why? My left brain could have taken over, and no, why am I going to Beverly Hills? And I could have gone to, I don't know, the Starbucks and read, which is what I loved doing when Sid was at a play date and I had a few minutes to myself, right?
Well, I tell you, the difference between angels and spirit guides, so everybody can understand that. And the reason I want to talk about that is because what you said is, before we incarnate, we choose what we want to do. What do we want to accomplish? We have a limited amount of time here. What do we want to do?
That's our blueprint.
That's
right?
our blueprint.
Yeah.
Well, Mark Twain said the 2 most important days in someone's life is the day you're born and the day you find out what you're here to do.
I
Yes.
love that.
Yeah,
true.
isn't that
It's
great?
very true.
Yeah,
Very true. But we also have free will here.
Yeah.
Now, free will means that we can do really whatever we want to do here, although we have a blueprint. So before, let's say you're going to this, you want to have a cup of coffee, and you're going to Starbucks, and you're headed to Starbucks, and then at the last minute you just feel this other pull almost. You know what? I better go to the store and get some bananas now. You go into the store and you run into somebody
someone,
you haven't seen in forever.
Yeah.
That is what a spirit guide's job is to do.
So a
they
spirit guide-
keep us on our path.
It's just like divine redirection.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, I love that expression.
Well, I always say that's what actual rejection is. It's divine redirection.
Oh, I love that
Oh.
reframe. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, because if you think about it, I mean, a lot of times it's because something else is better for you, so you're being
Right.
rejected at that moment because they've got something better in plan. I mean, you hear that all the time, but if you put the words divine redirection in front of it, then
Boy,
Well,
it
but
takes the
that's-
sting out.
yeah.
Well, it
Yeah.
does, and that's a wonderful reframe. I love
Yeah,
that,
love
John.
that.
You've got pearls of wisdom in there. We're going to start using you.
Oh, okay.
That's a title for a book, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? It actually is a great title. So, so it's almost like what you're saying. It's almost like they kind of implant a thought in your mind,
Yes.
and you can either go with it or not. Yeah, I still to this day have no idea what got me, because I know that I was so busy, and especially when you have a 2-year-old, and I was a single mother too.
Right.
Every moment is accounted for. So she was on a play date. I know I probably would have gone to the nearest
Yeah.
Starbucks to read, but I literally got in my car and went over the hill and went there and had no idea why.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great story. Wow.
So
Sort of like you just need to learn to surrender and just be guided.
Yeah.
But what if you do when you have like these, just overwhelmed with thoughts and you don't know what difference between your thoughts and your intuition? And how can you tell
that's
the
a
difference?
great question.
That is a good question. Well, I guess it would be what the thoughts are.
Okay.
Really, if the thoughts are positive thoughts, like, is that what you're talking
Well,
about? or-
sometimes, yeah, but then sometimes you also have fear that something's going to happen and you still go through with it anyway and then nothing does happen.
Right.
So
right.
that's when I get confused. Like, what is my intuition and what is my thoughts?
Okay.
You know?
Well, fear.
Yeah.
Anything with fear. If you have any type of fear, it's it will block that intuition.
Okay.
So if you're having fear, just keep going through it.
Okay.
Just go through it. Don't let the fear. It's the ego talking. Just don't let it.
But there's a difference
go.
between fear and when you feel something kind of something
right.
doesn't not right. Yes,
Okay.
about like either someone that you're talking to or a situation.
well, that you need to pay for. I mean, you need to pay attention to that.
Okay.
Oh, of
So
course.
how can you discern the difference between coming from fear that actually stops us moving forward, like we've said moments ago,
Right.
or something not feeling right that is actually intuitive?
I'll tell you what I do.
Okay.
Because I have that. It comes up with me too.
Yeah.
So obviously, so what I do is I always say this: is it me? Is it something? Is the fear about me? Is something going to happen to me? And then I get real still and pay attention. Or is it about ABC person? My mother, my sister, my daughter. My husband. Any of those people. Is something? Is it about them? And that's how I can kind of. Or is it nothing? Is it I'm just anxious?
Yeah.
And you have to play it out with yourself. But that's how I do it.
Yeah.
And I wonder also, to add to that, if the fear has something to do, comes from like self-esteem.
Yeah,
Like if the fear is
exactly.
about,
Yeah.
I can't do
Insecurity or
that, or
something.
insecurity,
Yeah.
exactly. If
Yeah.
the fear comes from insecurity, then that may mean
Yeah.
it's more fear than intuitive something not right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because that's always been one of the questions I've had in my head about intuition and just following your intuition, because it's not always that
Sometimes-
simple, really, unless we make it more complicated than it is.
Well, no, sometimes it's not that easy to discern between
yeah.
the two. There's a very fine line
Yeah.
sometimes between the two.
Well, one of the things that would help too is meditation. Meditation is really good. It keeps you in a nice, calm place. If you can meditate, if everybody can meditate, 20 minutes a day, it's not a lot of time, but that actually keeps you in a place that you can discern the difference between anxiety or fear or a real intuition.
Or past repeating itself
Right.
and playing in your head, and that
Right.
creates the fear sometimes.
Yeah.
From maybe a regular scenario that you're used to, but then,
So when you talk about meditation, say a little bit more about that, because 20 minutes a day is easy enough to do, but what do you mean by meditation? Is it sitting there listening to your breath? Is it sitting there noticing all these thoughts that are coming into your head?
It's a quiet place. So sometimes you just, as you're driving, in LA we have a lot of traffic. So frankly, as you're driving, put yourself in a meditative state. It's just calming. Maybe it's calming music, just so you're quiet. But how I do it is I sit. I used to do a guided meditation. So for anybody out there, you can go online and get a guided meditation. That's really
Yeah,
a
that
good
helps
place.
me because of my left brain.
It tells you, you're at a beautiful waterscape, and then you go here, and then you go up to the mountains. It just gives your brain a place to go. But in the meantime, you're calm. So the whole point of meditation is to be calm, keep yourself grounded and calm. And it's a very simple thing that everybody can do daily. And if you start a practice, it's like anything else. I do it religiously every morning.
try to do it in the shower. I think it's a
It's a
really
great
good
place to do it in the shower.
Because you're
Great.
relaxing, and then the water is conducive to
Oh, yeah.
meditating. And
Well, and part of a specialized training that I have, which is the somatic, experiencing, which somatic is just a fancy way of saying body, where sometimes because of maybe trauma, we disconnect ourselves from our bodies. So doing the shower thing is a really good idea, where you're really noticing the water, down your arm. And it can be actually very tricky for people who've had a lot of trauma,
Oh, I bet.
where it's too much. And so you do it very slowly.
okay.
Because we can be so automatic. We go
Yeah.
in, we take a shower, we get it done, and we never really felt what the water felt on our skin, And that's part of getting kind of reconnected and re in touch with your body. And that, because the body responds first, a split second first before the mind is aware. So if somebody pissed you off, your body's already responding to the anger before your mind is even aware you got angry. So if we can be so in tune with our bodies to know, oh, I just got angry, we have that split second of time to take a step back and decide how we want to respond to it, so we're not so reactive. And we'll talk more about that as we,
absolutely.
in our different shows. But that's, and that's kind of along the lines of the practice of mindful, of being mindful. Mindfulness and mindful meditation is just to be mindful of this moment. Like right now, I'm feeling my tushy in the chair, and I'm feeling my feet on the ground, and all of a sudden, I'm more in this moment. Just when I did that, I'm more in the room.
Yeah.
Like the colors are a little bit more vibrant.
And in my case, what we do is we feel we're a soul having a physical body, physical experience.
Right.
So if you imagine here your soul, okay, and then you're looking out at your eyes. Okay, I'm there. It's also a way I ground myself. Like, oh, I'm the soul here. All right, here I am in this body. Here we go. Yeah.
So almost, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's almost like a little
Two
man
different
behind the eyes,
perspectives.
right?
And what I think is going to be so great about this show is you both are skilled in psychology.
Yes.
Because you're an MFT, right?
Yes.
And then Shirley is also very intuitive. So the blend
true.
is just amazing. I think we're going to learn a lot.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why we're doing it. You
Yeah.
know, being actually, we're kind of definitely out of the box, like you said. And that some people may not agree with that or may not, and I had to really work hard to develop my belief system and really say, I just don't care if I lose credibility from maybe, more research-oriented psychologists because...
And I had to do the opposite. I went back to school.
Right. So you can kind of hone, ground yourself just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I had to go back to school. And it was funny, when I was in grad school, I didn't tell anybody except for 2 people, and they're still my good friends now.
That's so
I didn't
fun.
tell
So
a
you're
soul.
coming out,
Oh, I'm
Kellee.
out. Actually,
She's
James
coming out.
Van Prague already outed me, so I'm out. Thanks, James.
Well, but it's funny if you see the visual. I'm coming like from the ground up, and you're here, and we're meeting
It's so
somewhere
true.
in the middle,
So
right?
true.
Yeah, it
But
is.
it's really helped me. The
Yeah.
therapy has really helped me being a therapist, because people come to see me, and they're either coming to me as a medium, or as a therapist. But what they don't know is I actually use both, constantly. I had a family that came to see me a couple weeks ago, and the family was a husband and wife and 2 daughters, and the daughters were in their 20s. And it was a really sad story, and make a long story short, the grandmother had died. And the grandmother was very close to the family. But at the very end of her life, a sister came out at the very last moment, showed up, and said some horrible things to the mother. Horrible things. And then the mother died. It was a pretty upsetting way to go.
So the mother's sister.
No, it was actually the son's sister. So the mother had 2 sons, a son and a daughter.
Oh, I
and
see.
the
Okay.
daughter showed up and anyway said something horrible, and then she died. So not only was I able to bring the mother in and give really concrete evidence, because that's what I do. What was really important is the psychological background. Is that sister was a borderline. Now let me explain to you what a borderline is. So having a psychological awareness, so it could open up and give them more information than just the grandmother. You need to know that this person is not normal.
Yeah. Well, and that's a topic we're going to talk about here too. We're going to talk about psychological aspects. For those of you who don't know what a borderline is, maybe look it up and get an idea. But it's a personality disorder, and we're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about depression, from a psychological perspective, and what is the spiritual,
Leaning to
reason for, or
I mean, why did the soul choose to be depressed at that moment?
be depressed? Yeah,
Well, it's a choice. We spiritualists, everything's a choice. You don't have to. You can stop that depression. You can go get help for it. You can get medication for it. You can do. There's all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
Why did you need that special time to experience that? Well, as Eckhart Tolle says, is because that's what the spirit and the soul is having at that moment. That's why they're having it.
But see, that's what I mean. It's such a beautiful explanation, and it's not. It's one possible explanation. But we can either, switch our perspective and believe that and help us feel a little bit, better and lighter, or we can continue with, no, just bad things happen to me and that's just the way it is, and be heavy. And so it's a choice.
And that's often why they search you out. They look at the doctor and they're like, fix me.
Oh,
Right? They want you to fix me.
Yeah.
Right,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
But in a spiritual perspective, you got to fix yourself, but you got to get the tools to do so.
Absolutely.
And so the doctors help with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Or the medium or whoever, yeah.
And sometimes they just need a message that helps them know if they've lost a beloved one or a pet. Pets are huge when they've lost a pet.
Yeah.
And so often pets come to me. And they just need to know that the pets haven't left. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be around. They want you to get another pet if you would like one. They would love that. So a lot of times they'll help bring that to you, which is so sweet.
Right. And I mean, I think that this kind of this idea that on the other side we've made decisions on what we're going to experience in this side, either for global awareness or self-awareness or anything, is such a nice perspective also. That doesn't mean we're not going to feel, the sadness or the anger or anything. I think that, we need to give that respect as well.
Yeah.
It's not about believing that so I don't have to feel sad because, my dog died. But it gives us an explanation, I think. I mean, let's not go as far as, Cecil the lion.
Right.
That's this big thing that everyone's talking about now, And because you've explained that to me and I believe that, well, why do you think this happened?
Well, I believe that Cecil was a very, very high soul that chose this experience to open up so everybody could have awareness, to bring awareness, which is what we're doing on this planet, to something that should never go on. So I'm so against all of that, but and to bring open up awareness to everybody, to people.
And I think the interesting thing about it too is if you think of Leo and the lion, it happened in July.
You're right. It did.
Wait a
Which
minute,
is
what do you
Leo.
mean?
Yeah. Well, if you go by Western, it is.
Western astrology.
Oh, astrology.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But you're
wow.
absolutely right.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
I mean,
That is very interesting.
the
Wow.
timing of that.
But see,
Yeah.
because to me, it doesn't make sense, again, in my left brain, that it just happens for no reason, right? And there's something to it because everybody's talking about it, and there's been so much awareness built up about, poaching and about letting people just go off and kill. What really pisses me off about it is that it's such an unfair advantage. They're using guns and arrows. I feel like saying, okay, go out there on your own. It's you against the lion. And if you win, I'll be impressed.
Right.
But when you've got a gun,
Right.
and then you sit there, with this lion, and you're like, look at me.
Yeah,
I'm so tough. I killed a lion. But you used a gun or an arrow, which is even more,
Exactly.
disturbing. To me, it doesn't prove anything.
No.
It's not a manhood thing because it was an unfair advantage to begin with.
Completely.
But it's brought so much awareness that I have to believe something that both you and James taught me a long time ago, that souls on the other side, especially when it's something so huge, will come and make that choice to sacrifice themselves so that awareness. The Amber Alert, I think, is another example.
I got chills when you said that.
Right?
Absolutely.
And again, it's not to give an excuse or to say I'm not going to feel sad about this tragedy.
No, not at all. No, it's people will choose before we incarnate. We will choose if we need to make a sacrifice to come here to. It all helps everybody, and so there are souls that will do that.
Yeah.
I believe that the people that in 9/11 that passed had an agreement that they would take this on as well to help. Bring awareness to what was going on in the world.
Is that what's called a martyr, or is that a different term?
It's a good question. I'm not Catholic,
Okay.
so I have no religious background, so I don't know.
That popped into my head. It's like, is that what they're doing? I mean,
It's a
as
good
a soul.
question.
Yeah, I mean, I can look it up and share that. But what
Well,
I
look
find,
up is like what the definition is.
yeah, and and I had posted on my Facebook about that. Out of tragedies comes an opportunity for positive growth and change, and we can't change the past, but we have a choice of how we choose our own energy. Yeah. And so we can't waste our energy on the negativity, and we don't always share the same worldview, but we need to have a positive change of how we see things in the world that we share.
Right.
Yeah. So,
and I think that from, coming from that kind of earth-based psychological perspective, I think there's a time and a place to reach that acceptance, but we have to go through the different the anger,
Right.
the
Yeah.
I think what are the
the stages of
the
grief.
stages of grief,
Yeah.
denial, negotiation, that kind of thing. We have to. It's like when people come to my office and they've suffered, child abuse as kids, and they want to jump to being okay and being accepting. And if you jump to that too quickly, you haven't given the anger and the disappointment and the sadness of having a parent who wasn't there for you in the way you needed them to be enough respect. And I use that word very purposefully. So you have to go through the emotions of it and the feelings of it before you reach that point of acceptance. And in this case, what we're talking about is, it was an agreement for a better good and
Absolutely.
or higher,
Right.
a higher consciousness. I do believe that. But I do believe that we also need to give the other, I wouldn't want that to be used as an excuse
Right.
to
Oh
then,
my gosh,
No.
no,
lock
no, no,
down
no.
the feelings and not have feelings about
no,
it
not
because,
at all.
let me tell you something.
Okay.
Okay. Being the left brain that I am, if we could get rid of emotions, I would have found a way already. The real deal is, and let me tell you out there, is that we're human beings. As mammals, we have emotions.
Yeah.
So we can shut them down, like I did for a long time. We can shut them down. We can shove them over. We can lock them in a basement, and stuff. But they will come out, and they'll come out somehow, somewhere. They'll either come out physically with arthritis, which
Right.
can be, can be associated with anger, unresolved anger, with some physical
Absolutely.
problems, gastrointestinal problems, or they come out like with me at the end of the Brady Bunch. I'd cry because of that always wonderful moving, where Carol and Mike would talk to the kids and everybody was so happy and stuff, and I'm sitting there crying. Okay, really?
Oh my
At
gosh.
the Brady Bunch? Are you kidding?
Wow.
So and
Who
that's
knew?
because sadness was so right there
Yeah.
that it would come out at any, So, or people, if you find yourself, going to the store and the store ran out of your favorite ice cream and you lose it, that means that there's some unresolved anger
So it's like
that's
pressure.
right there.
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly.
pressure, and you're
Exactly.
pushing it, and it's going to pop back up.
It's going to pop
Yeah.
back
Okay.
up or manifest itself
right.
physically.
Got it.
So emotions are a part of who we are, so we're going to have to deal with it, folks.
Absolutely.
And that'll be some of the
topics.
shows that we'll be doing.
I'm looking forward to all this.
Yay.
It's going to be a
Yeah,
great
it's
show.
going to be great.
It's going to be
Yeah.
great. I just want to say one last thing before I forget to mention this. Is there are many different types of mediums.
Yeah,
in,
explain
in
that.
So I'm a psychic medium. The difference between a psychic and a medium is not all psychics are mediums, but all mediums are psychic.
So what's the difference between a psychic and a medium?
If a psychic can see the future, they can tell you what's going on, but a medium can go higher. What it is we raise our vibration, and the other side lowers their vibration. So we can receive messages from the other side.
So a medium can connect to the other side, whereas
That's
a
correct.
psychic can't. But
Yes.
a psychic can have
But
like
a
a
medium,
vision
about
your future and stuff
yes,
like that.
absolutely. But a medium is always psychic.
Right. Okay.
So that needs to know. But also, what I mean by other types of mediums is my background is now psychological. And so anybody who's crossed over that has had, say, suicide, I get a lot of that, or problems, I don't know, depression or anxiety or whatever, they tend to come to me. But if somebody had, let's say there was a murder, I'm not the medium for that because I don't ever watch those shows. I don't know anything about it.
So spirit works with what you already know.
Exactly. And they'll put images in my
Images into your
head,
head.
or sometimes they'll show me a movie, or sometimes I'm clairaudient as well, which means clear hearing. So they'll come right to my ear and they'll start telling me things. So it's a combination of things. But
Right.
we all have our specialty. Like some people specialize in lost children, That's not me either. But it's not. It's like changing a radio station.
Sure.
It's like that. It's,
Oh, that's so interesting. So some people are jazz, some people are
exactly.
country, some people
Yeah.
are rock,
Rock and roll.
Ah,
Yeah.
a little bit
And
country.
whatever's
People
your
are Neil
specialty.
Diamond.
Yeah. Okay. So you would be called a psychic medium because I had you listed as a spiritual medium earlier. So it's psychic /
Psychic
medium.
medium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tune in, everybody. It's going to
Yeah.
be every Sunday at 3:00. Kellee will be here. I will be here. You can call in. Sometimes
Oh,
we'll do
absolutely.
call-ins because
Absolutely.
Kellee can,
Oh, yeah. I'd love to do some.
And you can always
Channel
join in the chat
through.
room as well.
Yeah.
UBN Radio Channel 1. So go to ubnradio.com and click on Channel 1.
And then what's the phone number if
And
you
the
want to
phone
call
number
in?
is 323-284-7826.
And we'll have it on our
On your webcast.
on my way. There we go. Thank you, John.
And
on our
website as well.
And
But
website,
the
yeah.
thing is that we'll be having this on YouTube. So folks can go back and watch it on YouTube, right?
That's right. We will
So-
have little clips on YouTube so you can see what the show's about. You can always, download the podcast if you've
Yeah,
can't be
the
here on
podcast will be
Sundays
on
at 3.
iTunes, and that will be on Stitcher, and also at ubnradio.com.
Yeah.
So,
So we invite
lots
you
of
to
ways.
join us. We're going to talk about really great, interesting topics and give you both perspectives.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.